Hello there. This is going to be a relatively, I'll try to keep it quick, but who knows. I tend to go on a little longer because I try to explain everything as much as possible. But this will be a bit of a little prop review and explanation of how I made it. So, without further ado, I don't think I can get the full item into frame, but this is a torch used for LARP and the like. And I don't know how close I can get this in, but the wood grain here is very impressive. So, let's start from the bottom and work our way up. What you have here is basically a cap of PVC wrapped with leather, or you can use cloth. It really depends on your preference. The actual body, we'll get back to that later actually. A PVC cap, not a cap, a coupling, and then this cage piece. This cage piece was actually used for outdoor lighting. You can find it at Home Depot or potentially any hardware store near you for something similar. But it does come with a sort of cap cover, and you can just simply remove that and set it aside. You don't need that. The hardest part to actually get was this actual light, because I had to end up ordering it online. And also a personal reminder here for me to link where I got that from. It's just an Amazon link. And that's about it. So just those couple parts. Now, as far as the construction for this, the first part was taking care of this body, this dowel here. I keep saying dowel. I've tricked myself. In fact, this is actually PVC pipe. It's hollow, which makes this a very lightweight build, you know, so it's very nice to carry around. Not too heavy, just most of the weight here at the end. Now, the way I did this was I had initially sanded this with alternating between some fine and coarse sandpaper. However, that wasn't really giving me these large streaks and grains that I was looking for. Eventually, I did find that using these little circular blades on the Dremel tool, they look very similar, almost, they'll look similar to a washer, right? But these circular blades you can fit onto a Dremel tool will allow you to cut into here, right? So if you hold it like this and just kind of go back and forth, of course, I would very much recommend eye protection and hand protection because there is a very fast moving blade. And just basically also try to clamp this down if you have that. But just casually go across, you know, so you're kind of skipping across and letting it bounce basically on its own. It'll give that randomness to the grains. Every so often, sort of tighten your grip a bit and really dig into it to get these longer ones. So apply a bit more control to the tool. Now, that basically is how you get this texture. You know, you just have to kind of do it over and over again through the whole length of the blade. The pipe. Okay, so after doing that, I then would do a few quick passes with some fine sandpaper to get rid of any overall roughness, but at the same time, not too much. That way I still retain, you know, the grains I had just created. After doing so, I cleaned it, got all the dust off. I even washed it and let it dry for a few hours. When that was drying, That's when I prepared the cap. I really just painted that. You can use either a brass or a gold. Then you can lightly dust it from a distance, right? You can dust it with some black or some sort of dark metallic-y bronze. So it'll give that nice aged dark metal look. Again, like I mentioned, this is leather. I simply cut a strip and wound it around. I applied through this whole area here on the actual pipe, I applied some liquid, the rubber cement, and I then applied that onto the back side of the leather. Once you let that set for a couple minutes, it becomes nice and tacky, and that's when you can apply this on. And then I simply tied it off to secure the ends. The most interesting part, in my opinion, is here and here, having to fit this together and make it look seamless. Because you cannot really tell too much. I unfortunately don't have any bright light here. I'll try to angle it. But in here, I applied some super glue, and then I quick cured it with some soap. This gave it a much rougher appearance than letting it sit normally, slightly dabbing it, and it really made it look like it was forge welded together, which is very nice. It makes it look a bit more authentic. And then when I put this light on, I ran into a slight issue. Putting the light onto the base here, there was a slight gap because this had poked through. There's a hole that came inside of this here. This pokes through, right? Because I was trying to expand as much surface area to connect everything together. So, even though it was nice and secure, that gap had to get filled. So I put a thin 3mm piece of foam right in here. Then I did the same thing as I did below, and I just used some super glue, quick curing it with some soap, and just lightly wiping it and dabbing it. And it created a very nice sort of welded, forged look. I keep saying welded because technically forge welding, that is a legitimate method, you know. But yes, that's basically it. And then afterwards, I again used the rubber cement and put that onto the foam. And that's all there is to this, really. Of course, once those sub-assemblies were done, I simply stuck it onto the central pipe. There really is no screws or anything. It's just a bunch of super glue and rubber cement holding this together. Yet it's done in a way where it's not going to really fall off, right? This doesn't bend or flex like any piece of armor, a weapon, or shield. It's purely cosmetic for show. That's why especially the super glue is a valid choice. And you don't really have to worry too much. I mean, I can go swinging this around. I'm not too worried. Now, of course, if I hit anything, that's a whole different story. But again, that takes a bit of self-awareness and common sense. Don't go hitting this against anything, especially against anybody. That is not to be advised. Now, as far as the effect, that's the charge port. Apologies, because the charge port and the power button look basically identical. But since this is a nice open gap, you can plug in the charging port there quite efficiently. Here's the power, and it gives you a nice fiery effect. And then, of course, you can change the settings. I believe that's simply like a slow pulsing, yes, and then off. So, all in all, this only took about a day, maybe two, because, you know, between work and everything, especially since I let this completely dry. As far as painting, that's what I almost forgot. Painting. I did mention how I painted the caps. The coupling was simple black spray paint. And I would choose like a flat or matte color, nothing too glossy for any of this. The paint for the central dowel, I keep saying dowel. I'm telling you, it's very convincing. You are going to probably fool quite a few people doing this. But for the central pipe, this is what I used was actual wood stain, like a coffee dark brown color. You can use regular paint, whatever floats your boat. However, with all of the sanding and all the texture I added to this, using the stain worked very well. It took very well. It did take a lot of time to set, however, because there was the oil. It was quite tacky. It was technically dry, but technically not. So while the project was put together and done within a couple of days, this alone took several days to set, especially around here where it's pretty humid regardless of the season. It was kind of a pain, even after I took it inside. That's the only hiccup I had with this, was really trying to get this nice cured and dry after applying the stain, but it still came out beautifully, in my opinion. As far as the pipe size, I do believe this is just a 1-inch. Let me see real quick. Let me get the measuring tape here. The circumference of it I can measure. Let's see real quick. Circumference comes out to about, that's almost a little over 4 inches, 4 1/4 about. But if we're looking at the end cap, let's see, it's about 1 1/2. So I would buy a pipe that's in around the 1 1/2 range, 1 1/4. Something that fits nice into the palm of your hand, right? That you don't have to, you don't have a lot open, and something that doesn't wrap too much around into your fingers. But then again, everybody has different size hands, so even that you might want to customize. And that will basically do it for this video. I just thought I'd share it as just a little piece of LARP equipment that I've made over the past few months. And I might show off a few more things. However, quite a few pieces I have to modify, and they're still out in the garage, so that will take some time. But for those of you that stopped by, I do thank you for visiting me. And I do hope you enjoyed this and perhaps gained some insight on this. And like I said, another reminder for myself here at the end, I will put a link for the Amazon item for the light. And that's about it. And I'll even try to look up the particular cage piece here, because I know that might be a bit difficult, but I can remember it was in the outdoor lighting section. But as I was saying, that'll be all for today. I thank you for visiting, and I hope to catch you in the next one. Peace.